Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. I was told that this story belonged in the subreddit. This story happened a few years ago, so details might be a bit hazy. I was returning home from a trip that I cut short due to a family health emergency. The flight was pleasant, but I was in a bad place mentally. I did what I usually do in situations like that and kept to myself, saying few words. I plugged in my headphones and started to listen to some podcast during the 2-hour flight. Over the sound of the podcast, I heard someone speaking loudly in a pretentious nasal voice talking. I pulled out my earbuds and heard a guy arguing with a flight attendant about how he had asked for something several times but didn't get it. I didn't really care and tried to ignore him, but he kept going, asking the flight attendant for her name and telling her that the airline company must hear about it. I don't remember what he wanted, but it was some kind of drink they didn't have available for some reason. I returned to my podcast and raised the volume. 10 minutes later, by the podcast timer, he was still ranting in his annoyingly pretentious way of professionalism, respect, and giving customers what they want. I switched to some rock music to drown him out and saw the captain coming over to talk to him. He was flailing his arms around like spaghetti. My worry about my hospitalized grandmother gave way to anger, and I started fantasizing about all the different ways I would shut him up. The captain walked away with a frustrated look on his face, and the flight attendant started serving the other passengers and ignoring his attempts to stir up trouble. I think they got him some alternative drink which he never touched. We landed, and I put my earbuds away to get ready to leave. He was first in line by the airplane door, and I was right behind him. The door opened, and an airport security guard was standing there to escort him through the tube. I followed, and by the end of the tube, a higher-ranking guard was waiting for him. He stood blocking the way out, and I saw that other passengers behind me were fed up with this guy who never shut up for more than half of the flight time. He was arguing about how terrible the crew and service was, and how he never had service this bad. He kept saying he needs to leave now, because his family was waiting for him, or some similar non-reason. My anger was starting to boil. Should I shove him? Bang my pulling bag onto his leg? Punch him in the back? Would everybody clap? I had to head straight to the hospital, and everyone behind me had places to go. I've heard many stories about people like him online, across many different channels. Nobody would feel bad for them. But this wasn't only about them. It was also about who I am and what kind of person I want to be. I took a couple of deep breaths to calm down as he was telling the guards how to do their jobs, and with the most aggressive tone I could come up with despite my stress and exhaustion spoke up. Get the F out of my way. That F-bomb was enough to stun him since everyone else was following a code of conduct required by their jobs, and for the first time since I noticed him, he had nothing to say. The guards took advantage of his silence and started to move him away, hopefully to some back office where he will be delayed for a few hours. I left the airport and headed home for a quick shower and a change of clothes before going to the hospital. My thoughts kept going back to that entitled guy and how he thought he could be a pretentious and rude guy with people whose jobs require them to be polite. Politeness never works with them, and sometimes meeting someone who thinks they're scum is the wake-up call they deserve. God, I need to vent. Me and the Hubs were on the way to his former job's corporate office to return equipment. He was unfortunately let go. Our spirits were already down today. We turned out of the driveway of corporate building 1 as his supervisor was waiting at corporate building 3. Oops. We got lost in the maze of buildings and roadways. We're heading down the road, already driving on the roadway as we're passing corporate building 2. A lady in her nice GMC SUV starts to pull out from the stop sign at the driveway of corporate building 2. Husband is slowing down the car to turn into corporate building 3's driveway, which is right next to corporate building 2's driveway. The lady continues to pull out and T-bones us in the back passenger door. We spin out, and as I'm screaming and holding on to for dear life, my husband, being the absolute champion he is, does everything he can to make sure we don't slam into the road barriers or retreat. Thankfully, manages to stop the car in the middle of the road and drive it into corporate building 2's parking lot. We get out, and I'm immediately sobbing. This car is our only car and is really old, a 2007 Chevy Impala. It was in excellent condition for its age and has no major mechanical problem. Back passenger tire has parts of the SUV's bumper in it and is going flat and losing air. Rim is also screwed as well. Back passenger door is dented inwards and can no longer open. At this moment, I'm still sobbing, but remember I need to call 911 immediately. I do so, and they send out an officer. Husband asks other lady if she's okay. Turns out she's 7 months pregnant and tries to pin it on us by saying she thought we were slowing down to turn into Corporate Building 2's driveway where she was. I call my family, who thankfully talked me into getting my head screwed on straight. I contact a tow truck and the insurance company. Police officer reviews footage as Corporate Building 2 had cameras facing the road. It is decided the other driver is without a doubt at fault. Sounds great, right? That I'll get my car fixed through insurance. Not. Our state is a no-fault state. The most I'll get is $500. $1,000 from her insurance after making a claim with them. I only have PLPD insurance on my car because it's so old. It would cost thousands to have collision coverage on it because of how old it is. Now here I am, at home laying in bed with only slight neck pain and a headache from the accident. My family has thankfully arranged a rental car for us for a week, and I'll pick it up tomorrow. I know it's fortunate than most, but I can't stop thinking about how the car I have tried so hard to take care of and maintain and love so much is just out of commission like that for a couple weeks. This on top of my husband losing his job, being the only income for us. We just remind ourselves it'll all work out in the end. We've got our game plans. We've always been like that, having a safety net plan. We'll be okay. But today was like things you only see in movies. Losing your job, getting into a car accident, finding out insurance won't cover much to fix the damage. My husband says we should write a novel. Well, that's my rant today. Thanks for listening. Edit. Just to add real quick, my husband talked to her more than me. I was in tears and inconsolable. I am diagnosed with pretty chronic anxiety. My mind goes to the worst instantly. I worry about everything. I fear a lot, especially financial problems. I grew up below the poverty line. He said she kept repeating she was 7 months pregnant, and she was very passive-aggressive with him when explaining she thought we were slowing down. She even tried to explain that to the officer, basically anything she could do to make it seem like she was justified in going off her assumption. She T-boned us so hard because she was going straight across the road to Corporate Building 1's main driveway. We came out of one further down the road. Edit 2. Okay, I am more shaken up. I blacked out when realizing she was speeding up and about to hit us, so I don't remember anything leading up to the actual hit. I remember the hit and swerving, but not before. My husband told me it turns out the only reason she hit us in the back was because he swerved so hard because he saw she was about to hit the passenger side door, which is where I was sitting. She could have pinned my legs or caused other serious injury. He said he preferred her to hit anywhere else, and it was like instinct just took over him. Only her front bumper came off. Nothing else was damaged, and she left driving her car. Lucky her. Last edit. We don't have money for a lawyer. Husband lost his job, which was our only source of income. I'm not really keen on going after a pregnant woman in court, not to mention, I don't think it'd hold up. There's really only 3 reasons you go to court in my state: loss of limb, loss of job, or loss of life. None of that has happened. I'll just have her insurance pay out as much as I can get from them and call it good. I was on a date with this girl who'd been great so far. It was our 3rd time out. We were going to a concert. I was driving. It was going really well, and we were ahead of schedule when we witnessed a car accident. Car was stopped at a green. No hazards or turn signal or anything oncoming towards them. Just sitting there, a green to red to green cycle occurs. So it's a fresh green. The car directly behind car A, car B, gives a polite honk to car A. Nothing happened. The light turns red again. On the next green, car B drives around car A. Just as car B goes to drive around, car returns, no signal, and smashes into car B. Car B comes to a stop. Car A drives off. I immediately got out and went to check on car B's driver. His car was banged up pretty good, but thank God he was fine. Other good Samaritans had stopped by this point and were helping to attend to car B and making sure nobody ran into him while he was stopped, so I went back to move my car somewhere safe. First, though, I said to the girl I was driving with, I guess we better call 911 and let the police know about all this. And she said, appalled, Don't do that. You said he's fine. Let's just go. I couldn't believe she was so fixated on us making the concert that she was suggesting we just skip out on the scene of an accident. I figured I'd get my car off the road, then assess the situation. There was too much going on at once. I hoped I must be misunderstanding her. I found a suitable place to pull off, and when I'd come back, police had already arrived. I was hanging around, waiting to talk to them. One told me they'd want to take my statement in a bit, but I'd already figured as much. I was overhearing them talking to Car B's driver, and they asked if he had a dash cam or anything like that. That's when I remembered. I have a dash cam. I hadn't thought of it because I wasn't driving my usual car. My brother let me borrow his for the date. My driving us both to the concert was last minute when she suggested we both go together to save on parking. I offered to do it, trying to be a gentleman. But my car is a pigsty, and I didn't have time to properly clean it. I wanted to make a decent first impression, so my brother's car was the backup. I went to the car to pop the camera off its holder. I wasn't sure how to extract the video's data, but figured they'd know. The girl I was with asked me what I was doing, and pretty excited about the whole thing. I explained I'd probably captured the incident with the dash cam, so I was going to bring it over to the police. She grabbed my wrist. Like, with force, gripped my wrist is more like it, and yanked me back into the front seat. I thought maybe another car was coming or something. She gave me a heart attack. "You can't do that," she gasped, like I told her I was going to ram the guy a second time for some insurance money of my own. "Let's just go," she insisted. I couldn't believe it. That was a total turnoff for me. One of the things that had most attracted me to the girl in the first place was her compassion for others, service-oriented profession, and seemingly deep capacity for empathy. This was out of left field. I told her we had to stay around until the crash had been resolved, since we were witnesses. The police would want to talk to me. Probably her too. She emphasized again, "You can't do that." "What? Do what?" I asked, trying to figure out what I was missing. "You can't talk to the police," she said, like it was cancerous. Still confused, I thought she meant I shouldn't insert myself into an active crime scene or whatever. So I explained the police had already let me know while I was over there that they definitely want my statement. She goes, "You, a white male, are just going to cooperate with police?" Of course. First of all, she's white. Second of all, the driver of Car B was black. I gave up on trying to understand and told her, "I think I'm probably missing something here." And she replied, "Yeah." About 3 centuries of systemic marginalization and oppression. I felt like I was reading a hoax article in the New York Post. I told her the obvious, that the impacted driver was black and probably wanted the incriminating dashcam footage of the person who hit his car. She has the nerve to go. He doesn't know what he wants. He's probably too scared. You have to help him. I was having trouble computing what she'd said, and I was still pretty excited that I had dashcam footage. So I told her the police had already let me know I had to give a statement, so I was pretty sure leaving at that point would be illegal, but that I'd be right back. I mean, she couldn't get mad at me for following the law, right? Wrong. When I got back, he was gone. Haven't heard from her since, even after I reached out to be sure she made it home okay. Probably for the best we didn't make it any further. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. My English is not my best, so I'm sorry. Also a violent warning. So this morning my boss, aka my uncle-in-law, was dropping me off at home while he dropped off our kids at Grandma's because the 4th of every month for us. We love his kids, but once in a while you just need a break. We did this ever since I was 18, but stopped because Miss Rona. I've been going through a lot of things recently, and we decided to pick up our cool night again. We just goes out for dinner or a movie. Strip clubs, but we mostly got drunk and played Mario Party. Note, I'm his babysitter. We are best friends. I'm mom to his kids. I live with him and he finds me disgusting. He would straight up tell me I'm gross to my face. I got out of the car, was about to walk up to the house, but had to turn around because my 4-year-old was like, "I know that house ain't that damn important that I can get a forehead kiss." I'm adding that in here because it's just adorable. So I gave that little cretin his kiss, weighed them off, and then went to the house. Now, the people that don't know, I have really bad paranoia, and because of it, I'll make sure that the doors are always locked before leaving the house. It got to a point where I had my boss turn around on the highway to make sure the doors were locked. So when I realized that the door was unlocked, I was so confused. I thought maybe you forgot to lock it by accident. You do have crab memories after all, and you know damn well you being pregnant makes your memory worse. So I just went in the house without thinking. Do y'all remember Penelope? You know my boss's oldest child. The reason why my job sucks dick. One of the reasons why I hate myself. The reason why I have so many self-harm scars on my arms and legs. The reason why I can't live in my mother's house anymore. It was so weird seeing her, especially seeing her in my house. I knew not seeing this witch on Thanksgiving, some shit was about to go down. I was just hoping it didn't happen soon. Penelope was about to throw herself on me and scream daddy, but was shocked to find me instead. She made a disgusting face and said, "What the F are you doing there?" I was like, "What are you doing here?" "This is my house." She told me this is her daddy's house and that she had a right to be in her daddy's house. Then she looked me up and down, smiled and said with a happy voice, "Oh, you can get fatter?" I didn't know that was possible. Sadly, a game weight me being pregnant and stress eating because my 180 lb frame to bloom up to 270. So I mimicked her smile and her happy-sounding voice and said, "Oh, I might be fatter, but it seems like you're still a witch." The look on her face gave me a boner. How dare this low-life piece of garbage charlatan call her what she actually is? She was shocked. I don't talk to her like that because if you'll remember from my previous post, I'm afraid of her. But at that moment, my spine shows. By God, what a rush that was. Penelope was flabbergasted. He sputtered out, "Excuse me, what do you just call me my uncle-in-law? In-law has been teaching me how to insult people." So I kept up that smile and that sweet voice and said, "Did you forget how to understand English?" My mistake, then I proceeded to call her a witch in every language I know how to speak. After that, I became concerned, like I made a mistake and said, "I'm sorry, did you become deaf?" "I know it's been a long time since we saw each other, but that must be the reason why you can't understand me." Then I let out a loud witch. I felt so good in that moment. Then I just walked past her and upstairs, left her standing in the living room. When she worked out of it, she told me that she wasn't done talking to me, and I just said, "Penelope, I am on running 30 minutes of sleep. I'm not in the mood to deal with, you go home. Or I'll call the cops and your dad. And we both know that you're the second most hated person in the world by your father's standards." Surprisingly, Penelope left. I immediately went to the front door and locked it, thinking, how the hell does she even get inside? I freaked out for a little bit, settled down, and then took a shower, hoping that was the last of her. But God hates me. When I came out of the bathroom, my room was a mess. My mirror was broken, my clothes were all on the floor, and Penelope was trying on my jewelry. Ask how did she get in, and Penelope waves a copy of the house key in my face. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the cop. But Penelope rushed me and we started fighting over the phone. It wasn't fun. She was able to get the phone and threw it at the wall, then we just stood there. I realized Penelope wanted to hurt me, so my flight kicked in. Oh, shiny spine, I had so high hopes for you. I dip. I didn't get far before Penelope grabbed my hair and threw me back into the room, and she grabbed me by my hair again and punched me in the nose. Then she proceeded to tell me how I ruined her life, how her father hated her because of me. I was naked, nose bleeding, crying, and Penelope telling me how trash I am. Then I saw him. My boss grabbed Penelope by her hair and pulled her off of me and tossed her across the room. My boss grabbed a blanket to cover me up and he asked me was I okay? He was trying to hold him back. He wasn't trying to yell. He just balled up his fists and tell her to get out. Penelope screaming, how dare my boss laid his hands on her, and that she is his daughter. My boss was trying to get her to leave because he was going to hurt her. Penelope saw how her dad was protecting me, and she went off, saying how he could choose me over her, his biological child. My boss had enough and screamed, "You are not my daughter anymore. You stopped being my daughter when you tried to take away my ladybug. Me. I only have 3 daughters. That is his younger daughter's name, his niece's name, and Eleazar. Also me. Now get out of my house." Penelope said he wouldn't be saying that if he really knew me. My boss told her that he knew me and that he wanted her out of his house. That's when she put her on a big smile and said, "Do you know she's a prostitute?" My boss was confused and my heart fell out of my ass. My boss called his daughter a liar, then Penelope pulled out my old little black book. I thought I got rid of that thing a long time ago, but I think I accidentally packed it when I moved from my mother's house. Penelope proceeded to flip through some of the pages and thrust the book at her dad's face and tell him to look at it. The books were full of my old clients' names and their kinks, and some of them are gross. My boss said that I'm an adult. She still needs to leave. Penelope flipped to the last page and pointed at a specific name and pointed out that I used to have sex with Zeke, who are college friends. Edit. I got Zeke my father. In-law messed up. My boss and him were not college friends. With my boss, and who is uncle to his kids and grandma, my boss's mother, called him one of her sons. I thought, well, he gonna kick me out. I thought I was gonna lose my best friend, so I started crying and apologizing, saying how I need the money. I really did. My boss just snatched the book from her and told her that he don't care, he just needed her to leave. He was on the brink snapping. Well, Penelope called my boss a cook for some reason. And why can't he see that I'm just using him for his money, etc.? Same old bullshit from her. Penelope sealed her fate by saying how her dad should have let me die on the street like an injured dog that has been hit by a car instead of trying to nurse me back to health. And that I'm already lost cause and the only solution is in that moment is to put down the injured dog. Or just put me back into the road so I can get hit by a car again, hopefully finish me off this time. He was trying not to hit her. That's why he was trying to get her to on her own volition, because he knew he was going to lay his hands on her if he touched her. So she made him snapped. He backhanded her across his face. I never saw this man raise his hand to any of his children, and he's the last one to get violent. He mostly uses voice. You just have to hit a certain nerve in him, and by God, Penelope hit it. My boss grabbed Penelope by the collar and kept slapping her. He was screaming. Penelope was crying, and I was trying to get my boss to stop. I have to get up and legit hold back his arms. He came to his senses and stopped. He ripped my jewelry off of her and told her to get out. She grabbed her stuff and ran. After that, can you pick me up in character from my bathroom to try to clean up my blood when he just broke down crying? Full-on hands over face sobbing. He believes that all this shit happened to me because he fell to protect me, because I was just the innocent outside, and he promised himself that he would protect me. That's why he will always pick my side, even though I will be in the wrong sometimes. But yet again, he felt like he failed me. He just kept apologizing, saying how he shouldn't have left me alone. I just got on the floor with him and just held him, saying that it wasn't his fault. He cried and I cried. Anyway, we took pictures of my injuries in my room, got called the cops, got the lock changed, and my already broken nose is more broken than it was before. But my boss asked, I'm really a prostitute. I was, but I'm not anymore back when my family moved to America. My mother got sick. Then I got sick. So we wanted to double debt. So I started doing part-time jobs, the job that I could do my mother's control them. So I have to do. So by the age of 14, I was doing sexual favors for money. It was mostly my managers that with my clients, or the people who were in charge of me, but at the age of 16, I was making bank and I was dominatrix. Horny old white man will give you a lot of money to step on them. And by the age of 18, I met Zeke. I met his daughter in high school, but we never became friends until I was 18. His daughter thought I was being abused by my family again. She's found my bruises. She told her dad to try to help me, who works in therapy. I told Zeke what you has to do and that some of my old clients hitting me because I wouldn't let them sit in. I have a fear of being penetrated due to my PTSD, and so I'll never sleep with them. But I can suck the chrome off a trailer hitch. I told him to keep it a secret, and he did, but eventually he started to pay me to clean this house at the cut off my abusive clients. Then the next thing I knew, I was in his bed. He became my sugar daddy. Eventually he gave me a lot of money to cut off my old client so I can just focus on him. Zeke became my boyfriend for 4 months, but he got back with his ex-wife. I thought our relationship was toxic. I thought he was using me. Turns out he loved me. He truly did. We were really good friends. It was just my sister, yapping in my ear. I lost so many friends because of her. She did that to so many of my friends and made me believe that they were toxic, that they were bad for my health. So yeah, my boss is cleaning up my room for me. I told him if he wanted to disown me for sleeping with a friend, he could and I wouldn't judge him for it. He laughed in my face and told me he already knew and that his oldest son told him, Michael, you snitch. So I was like, wait, you're not mad at me for having sex with Zeke? And he said, I used to be, but I made peace with it. Even though you're the same age as his child and he's old enough to be your dad," and I laughed and said Ezekiel is 53. "He's older than my dad, and my boss pointed out how that was worth. I wouldn't trade that man for anyone in the world. We told my fiancé what happened and he was pissed. I think they're going to stop leaving me on my own for now." I've been reading this subreddit for a while now, but never really thought I had anything to share. However, I've just remembered a little story from when I was a kid and thought it belonged here. Let me know if it doesn't. English is my first language, but I often make typing errors, and I don't post on Reddit much, so I apologize for any formatting errors. The context. I have an aunt, I'll call her Susan for the sake of this post, and she has a son who I'll call John. John is a very similar age to me, so I would spend a lot of time with John when I was little, and he would spend a lot of time at my parents' house. Susan wasn't married to John's father, let's call him Harry, but they were in a relationship at the time. It wasn't a great relationship, though. All of that is relevant, I think, so with that sorted, let's move on to the story. This story takes place on a day that Susan had been arguing with Harry. They lived together at the time, and she'd left the house to get away from him. She decided to come around to visit my mom to vent, and I was home as well. While Susan and my mom were talking, the doorbell went. Harry had turned up with John, and they were both outside. Susan quickly ran upstairs to avoid seeing him, and I was told not to let Harry know she was there. I'm guessing Harry was over because he wanted to know if my mom had heard from Susan or wanted to drop John off so he could go look for her. I don't really know. I was pretty young at the time, and that wasn't what I was thinking about. What I was thinking was that I needed clarification on the rule that I'd just been given. You can probably see where this is going. My mom answered the door and started to speak to Harry. Meanwhile, I started tugging at her, trying to get my mom's attention to be able to ask her a question in private. After a little while, with me trying to find a way of whispering to my mom, she eventually says in frustration, "Mooch, it's rude to whisper. Anything you want to say, you can say out loud." At this point, there's nothing I can do, except ask in the raised voice of a child who's been told to speak up. "I know I'm not allowed to tell Harry, but can I tell John his mom's upstairs?" Cue a stunned silence, in which my mortified mother mentally processes what just happened and comes to terms with the fact she couldn't even tell me off for doing exactly what she said. Harry, bless him, tried to pretend he hadn't heard anything, even if it was painfully obvious that he must have heard, and left shortly after. John stayed and saw Susan. Susan later went back home, and I'm guessing she argued with Harry some more. They really weren't great for each other. And as for my mom, I don't think she ever really lived it down. I think she still catches her breath when she remembers how awkward that moment was. And she never told me not to whip her again. In the past, I've made posts about my brother's jerk of a brother. But this time, something else happened. I decided to go camping again for the first time this year because of spring break, though I only got the weekend to go. But it was just enough for me to unwind. My brother didn't follow me like he used to. I think I finally gotten him to understand screwing with me is just not worth it anymore, after he drank that growler full of laxative-spiked beer he stole from me last year. So the drama from him has been bad for the past few months. Though he's still an entitled jerk, and I've got plenty of things to tell about him and his antics from the months I wasn't posting. I figured my worries about camping trouble were over. But no, I had to deal with a lunatic, Karen. I'd already spent one night at my campsite. I was loving the fresh air, and fortunately rain was minimal. That's the only reason I went. Otherwise, I'd have just stayed home. But I had an itch to scratch to get out and enjoy some mountain air. I was far from alone as the spaces around me were full of tents, trailers, and RVs. Plenty of people caught the camping bug during spring break, just like I did. I was sitting relaxed in a folding lawn chair and watching Tailspin on my portable DVD player. Yeah, I know it's a cartoon and an old one at that, but I enjoy it, since as a kid I used to watch some old tapes of it a cousin had, and I've owned the DVDs of the complete series for around 10 years. And I won't deny I've always had a bit of a crush on the character Rebecca Cunningham. I had headphones on because other campers were playing music, barbecuing, and doing other things. I was just chilling and letting myself mentally zone out with some refreshing cold beer when I got a sudden and hard tap on my shoulder that frankly scared the piss out of me for a second. And then I turned around to see a roughly middle-aged woman in over-tight purple yoga pants with her hands on her hip. She didn't have the Karen haircut, but she did have the bleach blonde hair and overly large bug-eye sunglasses. I know in this situation a lot of people will reflexively say, "Can I help you?" But that's just giving an opening to these people to say whatever they want. So my first reaction is to just angrily say, "What? Can't you see I'm trying to relax by myself?" That set her aback for a second. She didn't go away, so I paused the episode I was on and grumpily asked her what she was bothering me about. She spoke up in a matter-of-fact way that sounded like she was trying to be in charge. I guess trying to activate mom mode on a stranger. But I think the unfriendly scowl on my face was enough to show that I'm not exactly friendly. So she just pointed at the portable DVD player and said that she wanted to borrow it and the headphones for her daughter. To make it brief, I said no. And no is a complete sentence. Because I don't know her, I don't know if you'd bring it back. And I certainly don't know if her kid wouldn't damage it. I do actually keep a smaller backup portable DV player in the camper too, but I wasn't about to let this woman know that. Well, she certainly didn't take to being told off like that well, and then launched into a tirade about how I was a grown man watching cartoons, how they only have one TV in their RV. And her daughter needs something to watch because her kids can't agree on what to watch, so she needs my DVD player. I coldly said that was not happening, and she actually gave me a loud, "Why not?" So I pointed out to her that this was really not my problem, and she just crossed her arms and said that as an adult, I should be putting kids first. I said that would be the case if I had kids. But her kids are not my kids. I don't know them, and I'm in no way related to them. And therefore I have no obligation to them. So she rolled her eyes and then tried to offer me money for the headphones and DVD players. Admittedly, I didn't pay much for either of them. But I don't care. I wasn't interested in selling. She only offered $20 for both anyway. I just told her no, and to kindly leave me alone to watch movies in peace. Then I tried to just sit back down and resume the episode. She didn't take that well, and proceeded to try and grab my DVD player right in front of me, like I was just going to let her walk off with it. I got up and stopped her while saying that, "Ain't yours, lady." She proceeded to try and shove me over. Try being the word. She clearly underestimated how heavy I am. I don't look at it at all, but I'm around 230 pounds. My body frame just hides it well. And I've been in a few brawls in my life. I ended up grabbing her arms and shoving her back with little effort. She fell on her bum into some wet grass and started yelling that I'd assaulted her while looking around for support. I've seen enough Karen stories to know where this goes if I say nothing. So I yelled, "Yeah, assault. Assault on me when you tried to push me over and steal my stuff. And there's plenty of witnesses around us, lady." Or did you not notice? There had already been a few people around us watching the whole altercation, and they'd gone dead quiet while staring. So then I said to everyone, "Check it out. We've got a bona fide Karen here who tried to take my stuff for her precious angel baby." Everybody clapped for her. And they did. They actually started clapping. Karen looked completely humiliated and stormed off screeching that I was an asshole. Her yoga pants ass was all wet from the grass, too, which only made it funnier. I kept thinking your ass is grass as she walked away. But I didn't say it aloud. I tried to resume watching the DVD as I was, but I felt uneasy that Karen might come back. She snuck up on me rather easily before, and I didn't want to risk that again. So I packed up and went back into my camper to continue watching and drinking inside. Got pretty plastered that night. I remember giggling like a moron while watching the episode with the panned people that were evil Chinese stereotype. Stayed at the campsite for one more night and didn't see the Karen again until I was leaving Sunday afternoon. I saw her standing by her POS-looking RV with a large fountain beverage in one hand and a dog leash in the other. It was one of those yappy little fluffball dogs, too. She glared at me as I drove past, and I just waved to her and said, "Bye, Karine," out my window. She threw her drink at my truck, but none of it got in through the window. I could hear her yelling at me, but couldn't really make out a word of it. I'm not sure what goes on in the heads of these people. I understand this could have gotten a lot worse. Like that nut bar sicking the local ranger on me or something. But I think the public humiliation was enough to make her back off. I can only wonder if the rest of her family is just like her. Glad I didn't meet them. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.